All right, folks. I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the program a good friend and one of my musical heroes, guitar player extraordinaire, Billy Crain. Billy, thanks for doing this, buddy. Appreciate it. I wanted to start out just to get your feelings on the whole situation of the world in 2020. Would have never dreamed it would be like this. It's sort of a madhouse. Not just the COVID, but the way people are acting and all like that. I want to get your thoughts on it, and also address your thoughts on the fact that musicians are also suffering because they're not able to get out and play, and people are suffering because they're not getting live music, and we need that as bad as we need about anything. So your thoughts?
You know, I'm not a very political person, but I am concerned about the music industry because people seem to forget. I know it starts all the way at the top, with the Keith Urbans and the Bruce Springsteens. It affects them, but then that filter, you've got their band, their road crew, their drivers, back to all the theaters they're playing, to the union people. All these people do not have income now. And you're talking millions of people. And we've been writing letters to our congresswoman over here, Marsha Blackman. She's been trying to do something about helping those. I even saw where Delbert McClinton, they'd set up a GoFundMe for him. I was like, man, this is really bad times right now. But it's the music industry was the first thing they closed down, and it's probably going to be the last thing that they open up. I'm here maybe in the middle of 2021, but it might be 2022. We just don't know.
Well,
So
hopefully we'll all live that long.
Yeah, that's right. That's very true. I got to thinking, about my brother and Charlie. God brought them home so they didn't have to put up with this stuff anymore. People are going nuts out there.
Yeah, I had spoken to Charlie Daniels the Friday before he passed, and he had said something so funny to me. He was talking about, and I'm not political either. Okay, I'll just say that, but he was talking about the whole movement to get rid of all the Confederate statues and all that kind of stuff. And Charlie said, I don't know what they're going to do about those pesky Dixie cups.
Now that he mentioned it, that probably is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I know, it's crazy. Well, let's go all the way back to the dawn of time. Well, not that far. But let's go back to when you were younger, and how did you first become interested in music? And also tell me how your brother Tommy played into that, and when you started playing guitar, that type of thing.
My mom and dad, my mom was a trained pianist, and my dad was a tinker, though he could play jazz. He could play Brubeck and some of that stuff. And they always had music on around the house. We always had a radio on. And I remember right around the 60s when Chubby Checker came out, and that whole soulful movement that came out around that time, we were just eating that up. And Tommy and I were always fighting over the radio to see what station we could play. And we had WMAK in Nashville, and they started playing all the early, what you would say, rock and roll and soul stuff. And Tommy, he got a guitar first. I think he was 10. He got a little acoustic guitar and was playing it, and I wanted to be like my brother, loved my big brother. And so one day when he wasn't there, I got his guitar out, was playing, and I busted a string on it and freaked out. I didn't know you could change strings. I thought I broke his guitar, so I put it on over in his room, and I hid under my mom and dad's bed for 3 hours. And finally, Tommy peeked under and said, "You can come out now, Billy. I have an extra string." And so at that point, he started showing me just simple chords like E minor and A minor, playing them back and forth and learning how to strum. And he, around 5th grade, he started doing the whole band thing when the Beatles hit, especially. He was getting in the band, and I had little bands and stuff. And as we got to high school, when the Allman Brothers band came out, he said, "Man, Billy, listen to this." And I was just floored. And we started playing together at that point. And I was in high school, and he was senior in high school then. And it just took off from there.
Well, how did you guys come to put together the Flat Creek Band?
I have a great memento. Roger Campbell, who was Tommy's and mine's original
Roger,
guitar tech and worked for Charlie all these years, gave me this. It's backwards. That's right. I had to turn it around.
Yeah.
Can you see it? Can you read it?
Yeah, I can read it clearly, yes.
This,
Flat Creek, $1.
This was in 1972, and a friend of mine, ours down the street, had a great big field in his backyard, and we had a open field concert out there. We would do that with Flat Creek. We'd just go to somebody's house and set up and play. And we started Flat Creek modeled on the Allman Brothers band. Tommy and I had both seen the Almond Joys quite a few times. And then we saw the Almonds when Dwayne was in the band with them a whole lot. And we want to be like those guys. Love the music. It was so real. And so we started. We learned Hotlanta 6 months before it came out. Because we were playing down on vacation down at Fort Lauderdale, and we got to go see the Almonds 3 nights in a row down there. And both of us playing by ear, we picked the whole thing out, went home, worked it up with the band, and we were already playing it before it come out. It was so cool.
Wow, I'm sure that was. Are there any tapes of Flat Creek around?
Yeah, there's a site in Nashville. I think it's on if you go on and look at Flat Creek Band on the internet, you can buy a CD. But there's some quite a bit of studio recording, and I think there's an early version of We Got Tennessee on there, and there's an early version of Franklin Limestone, which Tommy took with him, Charlie Daniels band.
Yeah, cool.
I got a good story. Speaking of Roger, you'll like this.
Yeah.
Somebody had written in Nashville online, what was your first studio experience? Ours was in 1971. It was a Flat Creek band. Roger worked for us, Buell worked for us, who was Charlie's sound guy for Michael Sanderson for years. We went to do a session over at the Audio Media, Creative Workshops over in Nashville. And Buzz Case was nice enough to let us cut some sides. Well, we had a great time, get some tapes, and we left. But when we left, we took all his microphones. And he called Tommy up. He said, "Tommy," he said, "will you please have Roger bring my microphones back?" So Roger had to take all these microphones back that he'd taken from the studio. That was our first studio experience.
Well, tell me a little bit about how you first hooked up with Henry Paul Band.
Tommy and I, in 1973, 72 or 73, were playing up in a club called Friday's Child in Knoxville, Tennessee. The Strip back then was really on fire. A lot of bands coming through and playing. We were up there playing on a Sunday night, and somebody called Jim Bradley. He was the owner. And it said, "Hey, I'm the manager of the Outlaws. Can they come down and they're playing here somewhere tomorrow night? Can they come down and do a set?" And they asked us. We said, "Sure." We didn't even have any clue who they were. And they came down and and sat and did a whole set on our old ragged equipment that we had. I think I was playing through a Marshall 50-watt bass head at that time. And they were great. And I met most everybody. I got to know Billy Jones really well. So over the years, the Outlaws, you know, when Tommy joined Charlie, Outlaws did lots of dates with the Charlie Daniels band. And I got to hang out with a bunch of them. It's kind of funny. I always thought Henry was kind of arrogant, so I didn't really talk to him a whole lot. But when he left the Outlaws, I was with Bobby Whitlock band, and he kept calling where I was staying and leaving messages. And I never would call him back because I just was like, I'm playing with Bobby. I don't want to leave this. Finally, he called my mother. And my mother called me in Memphis. She said, Billy, you need to call Henry Paul right now. He's got a record deal, and he needs you to come play in his band. I went, oh, I guess I better call him. I called him up, and 2 months later, I was headed down to Tampa, Florida, to put together his new band.
Wow. Yeah, and you did. You guys, how many albums did you do with the Henry Paul band?
We did 4.
Yeah.
We did Gray Ghost, Feel the Heat, Anytime, and then the Blue album was just Henry on the front. And it was a great band. I think personally, one mistake we made was when we parted with Jim Fish, because the band went off more commercial direction than the Southern rock that we were doing, and it hurt us.
Yeah. Yeah. The my train of thought just got derailed. Sorry about that.
That happens to us at this age.
It happens when I get a little older than I used to be. Well, I was just going to say, yeah, so many great things with Henry Paul band, and Grey Ghost is in my top albums of all time. I just love that album, and I wanted to ask about how you segued from Henry Paul band into playing with the Bellamy brothers.
Well, see, I was living in Pasco County, Florida, where the Bellamys were living, and Wally Dence's roommate, you know, Wally from the Henry Paul band, John. Gosh, I'm losing. I'm at a blank spot too.
Yeah.
I can't remember John's last name, and I know him so well. He was a sound man tech for the Bellamy brothers. In the Henry Paul band, we were at the end of the line. We had, you know, lost our management company and everything, and weren't on salary anymore, and dates were get far and few between. And John DeRusi, there we go. John DeRusi asked Wally, he said, would you guys want to come and audition for the Bellamy brothers? They're thinking about changing and going a little bit more progressive. And we said, sure. And let's see, that was in December of '82. So we left Henry and went and rehearsed in January of '83 and went out on the road with the Bellamy brothers. Went out for 6 months straight. I thought I was touring hard before. Woo! But they were great guys. It was different for me because, you know, you're talking about country crowd, and, you know, it not being as rowdy as being a Henry Paul band concert.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I was making more money than my brother at the time. He wasn't happy about that.
What was it, about what year was that? Do you remember?
1983.
Yeah, okay. That was long afterward. Okay, I was trying to think of back in high school when the Bellamy brothers first came out, and they had Let Your Love Flow as a single, and I was a radio announcer, a radio DJ. I remember playing that record all the time, and I was trying to think of, in my mind, you know, when you get as old as I am, you know, decades blend together, not just years, but decades. I'm like, wait a minute, that was the 70s. Billy couldn't have been on that record. No, okay.
No, that was it was late 70s.
Yeah.
And they'd been touring, you know, after they had that big hit, they went the more country direction. And So yeah, they're still doing very well.
And then one of them's, or both of them's sons went off. I remember talking to them when I first started the Kudzu radio hour. I had an interview with a couple of the Bellamy sons, and they were making music. That was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Jesse and Noah Bellamy.
Yeah. Very good guys.
Very good guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Um, well, was gonna one thing is so weird that I thought I knew you. I guess I didn't know you at all. I was researching this morning and I came across a thing about your songwriting. I had no earthly idea that you'd had cuts by Dixie Chicks and Poco and Martina McBride and all that. So, I mean, you've been writing quite a few songs. Tell me a little bit about your songwriting, some of the things that you've songs that you've had recorded.
There's the wall back there.
Uh-huh.
My wife made me take him out of the house and put him in the studio. So she said,
Is one of them a Dixie Chicks record?
there is one. It's Wide Open Spaces. It's at 11 million. It actually is somewhere in 13 million now.
I'm sorry to call them the Dixie Chicks. I meant to say the Chicks.
No, call them the Dixie Chicks.
Well, that's who they are. And named after the Lowell George song, for goodness sakes.
I know.
Please don't take that song away. That's one of my favorite songs.
No kidding, man. What Lowell George was.
I love the feet.
I wrote. When Tommy and I had Flat Creek Band, I wrote some of the songs for Reacts when I first started writing. And then when I got with Henry Paul Band, Henry wanted us to all join in writing. And I was kind of a step ahead of some of the others musically. So, and Henry was really lyrically inclined. He had a lot of musical influence too. So I got to write a lot of the material on those 4 records. And then with the Bellamys, I continued to write, and finally I wrote a song by myself and played it for Wally. And Wally took it to David Bellamy, and David said, "Why don't you make some changes on it?" And he did, and it was 1988. It came out. It's called "I'll Give You All My Love Tonight." It's their last top 5 hit, as a matter of fact, they had. And so, I was like, wow, you can make money writing songs. This is the first time ever. And so I decided to move back to Nashville and become a songwriter, and I got a publishing deal. And I was in a band with a guy named Ronnie Gilbo, and Rick Lano was playing drums, and I can't remember, Stick Davis from the Amazing Rhythm Aces was playing bass, and we had a band called Gilbo. And we wrote this song called "It Love" for our band, and we were getting some label interest, and had a A&R guy come in from LA and come see the band, and he told our manager, he said, "Well, I don't see anything in the band, but I would love this song for my act Poco." And Ron Gilbo did not want to give it up. He wanted to hold on to it for the band, and I saw the band was headed towards time, and I told him, I said, "All right, you're not going to let them cut it. I'm not going to let you cut it either." So he said, "Okay, fine." So Poco cut this song, and it went number 2 in America and number 1 in a lot of places around the world. Now here's the kicker on this was Jim Messina went behind our backs and rewrote the second verse and didn't tell anybody. And so when it came out, it was a 4-way split. And it wasn't, we never gave them permission to do that. And they finally worked it out somehow in court, but some money was lost that way. And then after that, I started writing for a country publisher on Music Row, and got hooked up with Paul Worley, who was, produced the Dixie Chicks and Martina McBride and all these, just tons of acts, and started writing for him. And so got a lot of cuts that way. That's how I met the Dixie Chicks. I didn't know who they were. Who's the Dixie Chicks? And they ended up cutting a song, "Let Her Rip" of mine on their first album. and I played on that album, and I actually did their radio tour with them.
Oh,
There was some hard drinking ladies right there.
no doubt. Especially Natalie. Um, that's
Yeah, buddy.
yeah, she's a piece of work, man.
Man.
I like them. I still like them. And even though it's not cool to like, that's another thing. I wrote a column about the other day called "I Like What I Like," because people like a lot of people give me, you're the ambassador of Southern rock. You mean you like the Dixie Chicks? Well, yeah. And you like Taylor Swift? Well, yeah. Some of it, not all of it, but I like some of it. I like some of about everything, almost. So I mean, it's just I can't stand music snobs. That just, oh, you mean you listen to Kiss? Oh, you know, well, yeah, I listen to a lot of stuff, man. Yes, sir. Okay, another thing I learned about you that I wasn't quite aware of was that you'd play guitar on a lot of really cool records too. You played what on a Shania Twain recording?
Yeah. That's their second or sophomore album, the one where Mutt Lange came in and it just exploded. I played on a song called "If You're Not in It for Love, I'm Out of Here."
Yeah.
They recorded here in town, and they wanted a slide player, and they called me to come in. And I went down there with my Marshall. Marshall with a Vox AC30 and a slide guitar, and what's his name? I can't remember. Franklin, really good steel player in town, was doing a solo for me, and I had to watch him do this solo over and over again because Mutt's famous, for being so particular about pulling one little bitty note here and there. And I thought I was doomed, but he had got me in there and loved everything I was playing, so we got in and out pretty quick. But they were both really, really nice people.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. The Of course, in 2008, I got all excited when you rejoined with Henry and the Outlaws, and I maintain that the lineup with you in it was perhaps one of my, I would get really slapped in the face by the Outlaws fans where I say it was my favorite lineup, but other than the original lineup, I think it was my second favorite. And I mean to tell you, it was great live. Oh my goodness! And it just lasted for a little while. And of course, you did the incredible "It's About Pride" album, which is fantastic. Um, a few thoughts on playing with the Outlaws, and also wrap it up by telling us why in the world you left.
Oh, I love playing with the Outlaws. Henry called me originally in 2005, the first time they were putting it together with Huey. And at the time, I was writing songs and doing pretty well and pretty tied up. And I said, "No, Henry, I can't do it." And this time around 2008, after Huey had passed away, and the whole songwriting industry was starting to kind of collapse, with the swing of radio, Henry called me and asked, "Would you be interested in stepping in where Huey was?" And I said, "I'm not another Huey Thompson. There's only one Huey, but I'll try my best." And I came into the band and just had a blast. It was a great band. Everybody got along really well, and it was powerful. When we were all on the same page, it was one of the best bands that I'd ever been in, and loved working with them. After Tommy died in 2011, things started going kind of haywire for me. Tommy died. Sandy got cancer, breast cancer, and almost passed away. We were in that terrible lawsuit with Mary Thomason that ended up costing the band $375,000 in lawyers' fees. We didn't get Christmas bonuses anymore. Our pay was cut in half. It just seemed like one thing after another. We got Dallas and Stella, our foster children, then, and then in 2013, my mom and my dad both passed away within a month of each other, and
God.
it was too much. It was too much for me to handle. I couldn't. I was collapsing. I remember I was down about 129 pounds, and everybody was around me was wondering, when's he gonna die? You know, it's gonna be any day now. And finally, I have a Christian psychiatrist see, and my pastor at my church. I saw them both the same day, and they both told me the same thing. You have to get off the road right now. And I'm going, no, we have dates. I'm getting on the bus tonight. Father Ray said, no, this is God's will for you. He's trying to save your life. You call Henry right now and tell him you won't be there. So I had to call him and tell him, which, you know, I felt terrible doing that. But that's when Steve Grisham got to come back in. So it was a good thing. So I got back and I got healthy and got my you know, back into living. It was all the stuff that had been going on and trying to tour was just tearing me to pieces, and I was just wore out. Those guys, they work hard.
Yeah, sure do. I tell you what, I love all those guys, Randy and all of them, and Henry has just been gold to me.
Oh yeah.
He treats me like gold. He calls me Mikey. Nobody calls me Mikey except my niece.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
Could be worse. He could call you Buffy.
Buffy. Well, a lot of people do, and it just makes me pig biting mad. But that's okay. No,
I won't do that again.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't really ever get mad about anything, hardly.
You're all pretty low key.
Yeah, it's just the way it goes. You know, it's a good parenting, I believe, a good upbringing, good Christian upbringing. So I was going to say so about 10 years ago is when you started your string of solo albums, the unending solo albums of Billy Crain. Like one every week. There's like, and I've written so many reviews and enjoyed every one of them. But the common denominator of these albums is your mixture of Southern rock songs and what I would call contemporary Christian songs. And I wanted to ask you what inspires you to put together these types of albums. I mean, I know probably what the overall answer is, the man, but
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. Feel free to preach whatever you want to do.
I'll preach, by God. You know, I for years I was a slave to drugs and alcohol, and all those years with Henry Paul and the Bellamys, I had terrible drug problems, and it was killing me. It started killing me way back then, and then when I moved back to Nashville, 1992, I got saved again. I grew up in church and came back to church and started this relationship with Jesus Christ that continues to this day. And so that was one of the factors that kept me going on the road. I would get up an hour before everybody else did in the morning and pray and read my Bible and, you know, try to keep some normalcy in that. And it carried over into my music. I didn't want to write full-blown contemporary Christian music, you know, praise and worship. I wanted to write, let's see, hellfire and wrath music. I would write these songs, and they would be on the edge. They, you know, it'd be, I talk about Jesus a lot, talk about God, and but then there's the other side of me that Henry always called me the social commentator of the songwriter world, and I love to write about different subjects and things, and just kind of gel them together.
Yeah.
I'm trying to finish up my new one so I can start another one.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about it is, you even during what I keep calling it the plague, during this lockdown thing, at least you're able to record. That's one good thing.
Yeah.
Can't get out and play, but you know, unless you play. I've seen so many people play from their living room on the computer. You know, that's been one thing that if there's a positive from all this, it's that I felt a real connection with some pretty famous rock and rollers that I would see, you know, just stripped down and playing acoustic guitar and singing on the computer. And a lot of the girls wouldn't even, you know, be all made up or anything. Like I like watching the ones that Kelly Clarkson posts. You know, she she looks like she just got up out of bed. You know, and she's up there singing, and it sounds as wonderful as ever. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of like that, seeing people for who they really are. And you know, and I've seen so many shows where, you know, like you talking about Delbert, it's like that with guys. I can't think right now, but some of the more popular people would do like a thing and just put a PayPal thing up where you can tip them during the show.
Right, right.
You know, it's like one of my friends is a pretty famous musician. I won't call his name, but he said people think that I'm rich. No, no. Without the gigs and all, you know, I'm just like everybody else. He said I'm just, you know, I haven't got any money coming in. You know, so it's like everybody, a lot of people are in the same boat. You know, it's like,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Absolutely.
all we can do is just pray, pray, pray that all this works itself out. But I was going to say, I just had a couple more things. One thing I had to ask you about on the video is, of course, going back 9 years ago to 2011, your big brother, Tommy. It was such a shocker when we lost him, for all of us, but especially for you, I'm sure. I wanted to ask you your, okay, two things: your greatest memory of Tommy, and also what's the best thing that you ever learned from him?
My greatest memory with Tommy, everything. Everything with him was fun, man. He was just the coolest brother. What older brother of a high school kid or an eighth or seventh grader wants to hang out with their little brother? I don't know too many. And he took me under his wing. He taught me how to play. And later on, when he was Charlie, he taught me how to be a human being in the rock and roll world. You know, Tommy was nice and loved everybody. He loved you so much, Michael. He always talked about you and the things that y'all did together. And that rubbed off on me that, you know, he taught me how to treat others. And that's why, you know, people come to my Facebook page and make a comment, go, hey, you know, we write on other people's in the music business page and they never answer back. And I try to answer everybody that sends me a message. It gets hard sometimes. With this COVID, it's been harder, and that comes from Tommy, about treating all people equal, you know. Tommy was a working man's working man. He was just an incredible musician and husband and wife, you know.
Yeah, I fully agree. Thank you for saying that about him caring for me, because the feeling was mutual. He knew that. And what's so bizarre is that there were two guys in the Southern rock world that I talked to almost weekly, Tommy Crain and Jackson Spires. Would talk to those guys almost weekly, and it's hard to believe that they've gone on to a better place now. But it's you really miss these guys, you know.
Oh man,
I miss Tommy's. Oh man, what a country boy!
he was a Bellamy hillbilly.
From the way he walked, the way Michael, he's the way he said my name, everything. Man, I miss him. But speaking of all that, I was going to ask you about the project you did not so long ago with Charlie Daniels called the Bow Weevils.
Oh.
What a great album that was. Did you guys ever get to go out and play any gigs as the Bow Weevils?
We did one in Nashville, and it's on YouTube. if you
Oh,
want to watch it.
oh yeah.
Yeah, we did one. We filmed with video and everything. We did a set. Back, my wife. That was right when my wife had fallen and hit her head and was really ill. And we didn't do anything. We actually talked to Charlie a few months ago about this upcoming volunteer jam, about having the Boll Weevils come out and play.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that was the coolest, probably one of the coolest things I've done musically. And how it came about was Charlie had been out in Colorado. He's got that place he goes to in the winter, and he started writing his songs. And he comes back here, and he gets with Charlie Hayward and James Stroud, the famous session drummer here, and cuts these three sides. And he goes, Roger, I need some slide guitar on this. I want you to find out what kind of strings Dwayne Allman used, and what size, and what kind of bottle. How did he tune it? So Roger called your friend down there at the museum and got the whole thing up, and he's got the guitar strung up the way like Dwayne did and everything, same model. And finally Roger looked at him. He said, "Hey Charlie, why don't you just call Billy Bill and get him to come over and play slide?" And Charlie said, "Oh, that's a great idea." So I came over and played on the two songs they cut. And Charlie said, "Man, you want to be part of the band?" I was like, "Duh." It was so cool. And you know what was the coolest thing about it was that night we played live, I got to feel what my brother felt standing next to Charlie.
Yeah.
It was like there were angels in the room. TC was right there. And I told Charlie, I mean, I was in tears. I said, "Thank you for letting me." I got to feel what Tommy felt every night on that stage playing with you.
Yeah.
Because he just, man, he just oozes just everything great.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many years, I was going every year for the longest time to the Angelus thing that Charlie did down in Florida, and Tommy would be there. And inevitably, Tommy would invite me over to play at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. We would jam with Charlie Daniels and whatever, maybe some of the Crosstown All-Stars, or maybe some of the Trick Pony Band, or some of those. But playing between, standing up on the same stage, and it was usually me and the cartoonist Guy Gilchrist, and we were up there singing. We were all. Guy's a great guy, and we were standing there with Charlie and Tommy, and the feeling, like you said, I don't know, I never had such a energetic feeling in my life. And I would watch Charlie, like one time at the grand finale of the outdoor show, I went out there to do just to play on or to sing on Devil Went Down to Georgia and all that. And Charlie had like all the guitar players lined up, and he had his fiddle bow, and he was like a conductor, man. He would point to one guy and he would play, and then he'd point to another one. And I mean to tell you, I had never seen anybody have that much control over 28 musicians in my life. But see, that's what
a miracle.
I know. That's what I meant. The greatest thing I miss about Charlie was his, the reason I write about Southern rock and the reason I think so much about Southern rock is the volunteer jams and that Don Kirshner's rock concert from 1973 in Macon, Georgia. Those two things got me started on that whole deal, and I'll never forget it. Okay, my last question. Well, my next to the last question. My next to last question is just briefly your thoughts on Charlie Daniels.
I think Charlie Daniels was one of the greatest ambassadors for Southern rock that we could ever have. When Henry called me and told that Charlie died that morning, it's like a whole era was gone to me. With Tommy, Charlie, and Taz, and Dwayne and Greg. I mean, all these people, the ones that I grew up, loving and that were there, were all disappearing. And Charlie was always treated me like family. He'd have me come out and play. He'd let me ride on the bus with him. And now he didn't, when he instilled the "you're wired, you're fired" rules, you didn't screw up anymore after that. So Tommy and I had to do a lot of hiding out, but he was always, and even after Tommy left the band, I would talk to him every once in a while. And then last year when I had cancer, he had gone through the same experience, and he was the one that got me into Vanderbilt Hospital pretty quickly, because it was progressing pretty quickly, and walked me through that whole thing, and continued to call me every month to see how I was doing. And then the boll weevils things happened, and we would talk a couple of times. That Sunday night before he died, I meant to call him, and I got involved with something else, and I didn't make that phone call. But what a great man. I don't, what can you say about him? Hey,
Yeah,
stop that.
That's true. What a beautiful tune that was. The
It won't quit either.
Yeah,
I got it turned off. Oh,
well.
Come on. There it goes.
Last question. Future plans for you, Billy Crain. What you got planned?
Oh, me, oh my. You know what? I think Charlie Hayward and I are going to do something. I love Charlie Hayward. We've been buddies for forever, and he's just the kindest, gentlest man. And what a bass player! He's
solid.
Just man. On the Boll Weevils record, we went in there. We would cut it one time and it was done. Rarely we would overdub maybe a solo, but it was amazing. But I wanted to do a next record called Stripped Down, and I want to do it just like bass, guitar, drums. You know me, I usually use keyboards and all kinds of stuff. And kind of carry on where the Boll Weevils were, make it a little more swampy and stuff. And that's what I'm thinking about, hopefully doing. But I'll keep on making solo records. It playing music keeps me sane. If I go too long without playing, I go nuts.
I know.
Really do.
Me too. I know exactly what you mean. Well, all right. Well, cool. I tell you, man, I appreciate your time and everything. I know people are going to love to hear from you again, and I'm glad everything's going well with you. And I guess you're past the cancer all the way now, right?
Yeah. I just had my yearly checkup, and I'm still 0.01, which is undetectable. So, praise God for that.
Yeah. Stay away from the COVID and all that. And all that. But thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I love you, man, and I'm so grateful that you're still being an ambassador for Southern rock, man. You're holding us all together.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm trying. Thanks.